Welcome to the Vibrant Couple. Today, I want to do an experiment and possibly create a series on divorce from a man's perspective, or from a man's point of view. So, I would love to hear about your divorce, who called it, how smooth or chaotic the divorce was, some of your reasons, and what is different now in your life with your new partner, and also what you would do differently if you were to redo the divorce again. Yeah, was it your call? Was it mutual?
So the separation was my call, and the divorce was hers. So the decision that I made for separation was to truly separate and be co-parents and see how that worked out. And at the end of 6 months, to see if are we better people and parents, and for ourselves, for our friends, for everybody, apart, or are we better together? And so we could address that after 6 months. But the 6 months of apart would really give us an opportunity to examine that. When a partner says they want to break, there's a lot of fear that comes up. What do they mean by a break? Is it a permanent break? Is it actually a short break? How much access do I have to them? Are we still having sex? Are we still sleeping together? Are we still living together? Are we still eating together? Are we still taking care of the kids together? There's all these questions. There's a million questions that come up. What are the reasons for the break? So um, I I gave a full 4 weeks of not changing living arrangements or romantic relationships, or the romantic relationship, or we're still living together, we are still very much co-parenting together. um, I let her know that she has me from head to toe until the end of those 4 weeks, and I was available to answer all questions, hold her if she needed to cry, hold her if she needed to yell, not hold her if she didn't want me to hold her. Just stand there as a very substantial target to be yelled at or screamed at or cried at, or whatever came, whatever came.
So that was 4 weeks to prep the coming upcoming 6 months.
Yeah, 4 weeks to prep the 6 month break, to answer any questions, to lay out the structure, to explain why I needed the 6 months of separation of the romantic relationship, but also to explain why I wanted to keep the friendship and the co-parenting. The co-parenting was kind of, we have two children, so there's no getting out of that. Well, I mean, I guess you could, but I wasn't willing to get out of that. So the 4 weeks was a substantial amount of time to answer all questions, and then also to make changes. Maybe she had inputs that I could be like, oh, I never thought about that. Let's come up with a plan for that. At the end of the 4 weeks, all questions had been answered, and I'd also done everything that I could do to prep her, and I'd also let her know I'd still support her financially and emotionally, and we could still, I would be available as a friend and a co-parent, but I really needed to break that bond of a romantic relationship for at least 6 months.
When did you know that it was over because it resulted in a divorce?
That was really her decision, and basically what happened was that she had felt, um, and this was a pattern throughout the 15 years, but she had felt that if she threatened divorce, that would stop me from going through with this plan of the 6 month break. And she was hoping I would basically compromise and be like, oh, okay, hold on, we don't have to do this, we can go back to normal and no changes have to take place. And that's why it's really important to understand why you want to do something like this, your reasons for doing taking a break, um, and finding out what you need in a relationship. Like, what do you need physically, emotionally, and spiritually in the relationship? Do you need do you need acceptance and tolerance? Um, do you need physical intimacy on a regular basis? Do you need to explore that yoga of intimacy to continue the relationship or grow the relationship? What do you need emotionally? What do you need spiritually? Do you simply need tolerance and acceptance for each other's spiritual practice, or do you need a partner who you do spiritual practice with together? um, and when you know what you need, it allows you to come to your partner with a plan. It's a lot to dump on a partner of like, I have a feeling I want more and I don't know how to get it. And then your partner's like, what does he mean by more? Am I not enough? And so it really puts a lot on them. And so I certainly came from a place of beginning with understanding what I needed. And so that allowed me to, during those 4 weeks, to explain to her, spiritually, I just need tolerance and acceptance from my spiritual practice. Emotionally, I just need to feel heard. I don't need you to come up with solutions, but I need to just feel heard when come to you and I tell you, I don't feel like I'm being heard. I don't feel like you really give a shit. When I tell you that it seems like you don't give a shit. And physically, um, I wanted us to continue to explore um, sexual polarity practices, yogic practices, um, and it was stuff. It wasn't sudden, it was stuff that I'd introduced maybe 7 years before. So that's also part of it. You don't want to just like you have to be very careful of not just like dumping a whole bag of new stuff on your partner.
You had about 7 years to somehow grow into who you wanted to be and ask for changes, and that didn't seem to meet your needs enough.
Because we were together 15 years as a whole. The first 7 of them was being very unconscious of relationship and just kind of going with the flow. And then that led to an implosion. And then around 2015, because of the grace of suffering, it allowed us to move into learning about relationship. And we really deep dived into relationship. Um, Statistically speaking, it tends to be women that are, sort of like dragging their husbands into relationship stuff. And so I was sort of the anomaly in that, where I found it fascinating. I found it completely fascinating why couples get together, why they break up, why they work, why they don't work. So I spent the last 7 years, um, working on that and finding out that I really had to learn about myself and go through a whole process of self discovery, which led me to focus mostly on men's work and having a circle of brothers that I could come to that would challenge me, that would hold me in integrity. Nobody's going to hold men in integrity like other men. And so that is going to be really seen by your partner and your friends and family.
I am making the assumption that when you asked for that 6 month break, you were still hoping that the marriage could survive.
Yeah. And it was certainly heartbreaking, um, to receive the feedback that I did. It was heartbreaking to receive the feedback that rather than her accepting the structure and the plead and the pleading from me of what I needed in a relationship, of how I wanted us to both show up in a relationship, and mostly how I wanted to show up in a relationship and be received. It was really heartbreaking to have that rejected. And so when I knew, I don't think there was a moment. I don't think there was a moment. I think it was more like a cascade. It started with her putting herself, like, kind of declaring, well, I don't want to do a break. I'd rather have a divorce than a break. And so that started that ball rolling, or that cascade. And then it led to, okay, well, can we do this together? Can we do this? Can we do this, be cordial, and can we stay friends and support each other through this? And then to have that rejected, and then all of a sudden to be hit with a notice of, like, now she has her own lawyer instead of, like, the lawyer that we got together to help us both. It started this, like, cascade. So there was never one particular moment. It was a series of moments of um, of her making that decision, telling me about it, showing it to me in action, and then being more and more vocal about it, to the point where it's, now it is legal divorce, right? And there's a legal document to that. But it's the thing for me that was much more important than the document was the relationship. And that's still, especially because we have kids, it's so much more important to me to have that co-parenting cordial relationship, and to maintain some semblance of a friendship, um, through respect and support. So even though the cascade of that, it was very loud, and it was very, like, her sometimes screaming, sometimes using, doing all the things, to let me know that it was an all or nothing situation with her. It took a lot for me to both accept it, and then, even if I didn't understand it, to just hear it and accept it, and try to keep my heart open through it, even when it was especially when it was breaking.
If you were to redo it, I have the impression you would make the same decision and end up divorcing. Is that correct?
I would, yeah. I would, knowing the outcome, like, even knowing, like, how difficult it was, even knowing, it's very difficult. There's a lot of heartbreak. There's a lot of suffering. I would still make the same decision. Yeah.
Would you somehow do it quicker? Just, rip the band-aid and then deal with your own grief after that? Or would you
That's a good
somehow
question.
keep the same structure that you set?
Hmm.
And
That's a good question. Um, hmm. No, I'm really proud of the structure that I gave. I'm really proud of what I did. Um, and um, it was true to me. It was really true to me. It was really, I wasn't ready to just uh, abandon. I wasn't ready to just, like, pull the ripcord and just be like, this sucks and we're going our separate ways, kind of thing. Because there's always a choice. There's a moment to moment choice. You don't always choose who you fall in love with, but there's that choice of, like, who you show up for and who gets your energy and your effort. And so that part of it is a real choice, like, um, and so I certainly don't regret how I did it, even though it made it much more difficult on me. Of, there's that there's that selfish part of me that's like, oh man, I gave everything to that 4 weeks, and I could have just really, and I was drained afterwards too. That was the thing. I was so drained after those 4 weeks. I was exhausted. I was drained. Um, so there's a selfish part that was like, oh, it would have been easier if I didn't put so much effort into trying to, if I couldn't save the marriage, at least trying to save the friendship. But I really don't regret it. I don't regret it at all, because that kind of effort, it resonates with my current relationship. It resonates to, our friends and family, and my children. And after the dust settled, I was actually really surprised about um, whom came to me. Like, her, my mother-in-law came to me, and was like, I think that was beautiful. I think it was really beautiful what you did.
How is your relationship with your daughters?
They've suffered through it too, and they felt the sadness of it. But um, in some ways, it's much better. It's My relationship with them is much better because they've seen me go through it, and I've supported them through this process. Um, and I'm much more present. The reflection that they've given me, like the feedback that given me, is that I'm much more present. I'm much more aware of them. I'm much more heart open to feeling them, of what they're going through, and kind of balancing them going in their teenage years, of knowing, when they start fighting with each other, or, kind of directing them into a constructive and kind of positive way. And um, they wouldn't use these terms, but what they've said is essentially that I'm less self indulgent now. I'm less of like licking my own wounds, and more of, hey, let's make lemonade out of this. That's is the way, that's their way to express it. So in a lot of ways, the relationship with them is much better, because I'm and it's hard not to be the it's hard to not be with them every night. But in my case, I'm at the firehouse half the time anyways, so when I am home, I have them on all the nights that I am home from the firehouse. So schedule wise, there's really no change. But what did change tremendously for them is that presence and integrity, and they see that in my new relationship.
That's wonderful. So, if you had quick advice to give to men and women, whoever decides to end the relationship, their marriage, what would be your, you know, two bullet point advice for each?
um, I would say start with the relationship with yourself. Start with your relationship with yourself, starting with finding out what you need as a person in relationship to yourself, so that you can practice good relationship with money, food, and sex, um, and yourself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So that way, so the second advice would be, so when you show up with another person, you can come prepared to with an understanding of what you need physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and that you can show up together and practice right relationship with money, food, and sex, and come together with a direction for your life in that practice.
Thank you. Well, I wish you the best in your new relationship, and I hope your ex wife can grieve the loss.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Cool. Take care. If this video inspired you to show up more fully in your relationships, I invite you to hit the like button below and subscribe so you can be notified when I publish new juicy content. And please share with all you think would benefit. I look forward to seeing you very soon.